Hey guys, Ashley with Amare. I am super sporadic with these. I am trying to get better, but I'm here. Hello. So today, let's talk about something that you guys very often get confused with, and it stops a lot of you guys from getting lymphatic drainage done. So this isn't just post-surgery specifically, but it really does pertain to surgery. We're going to talk today about the actual, like, what is the difference between fat and fluid? Like, people come in all the time and they're like, oh, I'm just fat. Or like, how do you know if it's just fat or if it's actually fluid that can come off of you? Well, number one, when you're working out like a maniac and you're not losing weight, that's a fluid problem. Fluid looks like fat to the untrained eye. The untrained eye is like you guys who are normally out there pinching at your stomach 24/7. Fat is smooth and dense and everywhere, and it's the difference between having meat on your bones versus like puffy areas. Or the best way to explain it is when you're truly fat and you lay down, you still have fat on your stomach and fat on your sides. When you're swollen and you lay down, you look perfectly flat. That's one of the ways to tell. The other way, with our lymphedema clients, they know they're swollen. Lymphedema is basically just lymph, which is the lymph system, and edema, which means swelling. So it's swelling of the lymph system. That's what lymphedema means. And usually, most often, it happens in the legs. When your ankles swell up, sometimes puffy under eyes, things like that. But lymphedema is generally a chronic lymph condition where you are blowing up consistently over and over, and it's a massive kind of episode or several episodes where your body's retaining lots of water and lots of fluid, and your skin starts to get really shiny because it's stretched so thick, and it's kind of like all one shape. It becomes very swollen into one shape. There's no contour around your bones. There's no contour around your muscles. So that's one of the things. The other thing is pitting edema, which is basically where your edema, your lymph that's stuck there, the swelling, becomes hard. And when you press your thumb against it, it creates a pit, like a divot. That is pitting edema. That is when you've had edema or lymphedema or swelling sitting inside of you for a very long time, and now it's becoming hard and thick, and sometimes even fibrotic, which is scar tissue. It is reversible. We can reverse it. There are ways, but that's what edema and pitting edema is. A lot of people with lymphedema have to deal with that. So that's an extreme case. You would know, like, hey, there's something super wrong with my body. This is not how it should look. So that's number one. Number two, postpartum moms. It should not take a year to 2 years to lose the baby weight. What is actually baby weight and what is actually swelling? We have a picture on our Instagram of the difference of like swelling within 4 days. The woman that I was working with lost 6 inches in 4 days. That is a lot. And it was all just swelling from the baby. The baby is in there, in your stomach, sitting in fluid. That fluid is lymph fluid. It's what helps, keep the baby alive, nutrients, blah, 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 blah. Once you have the baby, a lot of women will like snap back right away because their lymph system is optimal and they pee out and shed out all of that lymph fluid that's stuck on there. There are other cases where there is not such a thing and it's not as easy, and you wind up carrying around baby weight, which can easily be 20 to 30 pounds of fluid. It's a lot. I've seen it, and we deal with it all the time. And actually, in the Jewish culture, one of the things that they do that's like religious and ceremonial is right after the mother gives birth, the next day, there's a huge party, and the entire family is there, and the wife is expected to wrap up her stomach with a wrap and get really dressed up and really pretty and move and put on this party and work and clean and cook and get moving and start getting all of that stuff getting back to normal so that your lymph system is triggered and your body starts to pump out that excess fluid from the baby. So that's just a little side note. But yes, after pregnancy, you can carry around, or preeclampsia, where your ankles swell up. That is also a lymph problem that is very, very easily treatable, very, very fixable, and can be taken care of very quickly if you know what you're looking for. So back to my original point number 3. How do we know? How do we know what's fat and what's fluid? Well, like I said, looking for symmetrics. If half of your face is swollen and half of your face isn't, you'd kind of know. You'd feel it. You'd know one eye would be a little more puffy than the other. That's swelling. How do you know around your stomach? How do you know around your legs? How do you know around your arms? Well, you kind of don't. Again, it's one of those things that like you have to be trained. You have to be a lymphedema therapist or a manual lymphatic drainage therapist who's trained to look for these things and to know what the signs are. A good way to tell. Your skin is supposed to be very, very supple, right? Like I can pinch my skin and it's super, super supple. It's super soft. I can like move my skin just by doing this. I just move my finger back and forth and like my whole skin moves. If your skin is very thick and very tough and feels like it's not soft and doughy and supple, that is edema. That is swelling. That is thickness from swelling. So that's that. Not that it's, a chronic problem. There are two ways to get lymphedema. There's secondary and primary. Secondary is what's caused by an event, so an autoimmune disease. A panic attack that triggers your hormones that causes your body to blow up. It can be something like that. Or a trauma like a death in the family and your body freaks out and it triggers, again, an autoimmune response, either an autoimmune disease or lymphedema. You destroy vessels physically. So any surgeries that leave a scar, anything that's deeper than a millimeter, like into your skin, will damage lymph vessels. And you only have 600 to 750 of them in your body, 750 if you're lucky. There are some people with primary lymphedema issues that are born with less, which is where your lymph system doesn't function normally to begin with, and it's genetic. If you know in your family you have a history of people with like big legs, or where they have lymphedema and it is diagnosed, or maybe it's just like a genetic thing that, they're always like your bottom is super heavy and super swollen all the time and your top is very, very skinny. That is also a lymphedema body type. So there are genetics that cause that on a mild level, but also all the way up to lymphedema from birth, which is where some kids unfortunately are born without lymph nodes on their entire limb and their limb is just super swollen all the time and they have lymphedema for the rest of their life. So it can be a permanent thing. So that is primary. Secondary, like I said, is an event. So let's say you break your ankle and you're healing it, it's in a cast, and you're walking around on it, and let's say you used to be an athlete and now you're not anymore. You're no longer pumping the body. You're no longer pumping your system. So you're going to develop, most likely, lymphedema or some sort of swelling around your ankle where it's always puffy, or like with knee surgeries, which is the most common thing for secondary lymphedema, your knee is never right again. That's what you hear after knee surgeries. My knee just isn't right. It feels crunchy. It feels hard. It's always swollen. It's always tight. It's tight because it's swollen. That can be fixed with wrapping properly for lymphedema. That can be fixed with manual lymphatic drainage. That can be fixed by getting all that preliminary swelling out of the area. The reason it's still tight and the reason it's still there is because nobody ever got it out. From knee surgery to now, you're not as mobile. You're not doing any manual lymphatic drainage. Those vessels aren't pumping. And on top of that, there's even less vessels than there were before because there's nothing there. They cut it out and they damage those lymph nodes. So now your body has to figure out what to do with that fluid. That's where manual lymph drainage comes in. Once we get rid of that fluid, we're done. That's it. Most of the times it doesn't come back unless, again, you do something to trigger it. Maybe you have a food allergy and you eat something that causes your body to have an immune response and you blow up. Or like with your knee, you never really fully work it out, wrap it, do all of the things to keep the edema out of there, work on the scar tissue, work on all of that stuff for it, and then it just keeps kind of coming back, or it's always injured and always swollen. When it rains, the barometric pressure, things like that in the atmosphere where people if you have, a place where you've had stitches or a bad shoulder or a bad knee, you'll know when it's going to rain because of the pressure and you feel it on the joint, and that's because there's internal swelling in there. So again, pressure, that's another thing. If you feel like there's a lot of pressure in your body and on your skin, that's definitely a lymph problem, not a fat problem. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you can see my cheekbones. I have very prominent cheekbones. If you're looking at yourself in the mirror and you can't see a shape to your face and you can't see clear prominent bones, it's most likely you have swelling in your face. That is definitely a thing. There again are ways to get rid of that. We have sessions for that. There are things that you can do at home to keep that at bay and get rid of it. I talk a lot, guys, all the time. I am talking in session. I'm talking to you on here. I'm talking to my team who are just wonderful people and amazing and super supportive of you guys and our journey and everything we're doing at Amare. So I get swelling in my face because my jaw locks up and one of your biggest drains is right here in your neck. And you have pre and post auricular lymph nodes and lymph vessels. So if there's TMJ and if it's super tight, it's going to squeeze and it's going to block that entrance, and all the lymph fluid is going to back up into the face because it can't get out through the drain because there's something obstructing the drain. So there is a huge science and a very, very, very deep rabbit hole we could go down as far as how to know if you're swollen and what caused it and all that stuff, and it's so different for every single person. That is why we do these sessions. That's why we do virtuals. That's why I need to sit with you and figure out, okay, what is your specific swelling issue? But again, how do you know if you even have an issue? You could go to the doctor and the doctor's like, oh no, you're fine. Oh no, you look fine. Oh, it's just fat. Well, no, maybe it's not fat. Maybe there is an actual problem. If you don't feel right, then there might be a problem. If you gain a little bit of weight and you get a little fat, you don't necessarily get sick. If you gain a little bit around the end, yeah, your pants don't fit right, but you don't feel off. You don't feel like you can't breathe. You don't feel like there's something wrong. You don't feel pressure. You don't feel pain like that. Healthy fat is healthy fat. That's something totally different than this doesn't look right, or it doesn't feel right, or having thick, really tough skin, or like when you press your skin, you can't feel your bones, or you can't feel your tissue. Because again, fat is tissue. So like again, on my forearm, this is all like tissue. This is muscles, this is tendons, but I can still like squeeze and grab this and it's fat. If this was swollen, I wouldn't be able to pull it like this. My skin wouldn't have all this laxity. It would be very, very tough and very, very thick. So one of the things to look for is, how does your skin feel? Does your skin feel really tough? Does your tissue feel really tight and tough? And yes, you can do yoga, and yes, that's gonna help loosen up your ligaments and your muscles. But what about your tissue? Yoga does work on your fascia, yoga does work on your connective tissue, and it does help with lymph drainage. But you would have to do yoga every day for a very long time to get your body to start rebalancing itself. With lymph drainage and with what we do, even just having a ritual session with me and targeting the lymph drainage stuff at home and figuring out your triggers and figuring out how to stop them is going to make a difference immediately. And there are tons of lymph-friendly things that you can do at home, like trampolines, certain foods, water, things like that. Let me just say, those lymph drops that you're putting in your water is not what is working. It's the water that you're drinking that's working. If you want to know more about that, go watch my millions of videos on the lymph system and read our website about the lymph system and why it works and how it works and the science behind it. But those drops, if you have been listening to me and following me and watching me and knowing anything about the actual mechanics of your body, you would know those drops really aren't doing anything. They don't affect the lymph system at all. They're an herb. They'll boost your body. They'll boost your cells, but they are not moving your lymph fluid. They're not breaking up fibrosis. They're not breaking up scar tissue. They're not turning your hard, like dehydrated lymph fluid back into water for your body to absorb it and flush it out. The drops do nothing, guys. The vibrating machines do nothing. Vibration plates work for your whole body, but they just shake the fluid. They don't actually move it out. Again, tons of videos on all this stuff, but there are so many common misconceptions of at-home things that you're supposed to be using to get rid of your fat or your lymph drainage or your cellulite or all these things that they claim. If you actually take the time to learn the science of the lymph system, like I'm teaching you guys constantly, and actually understand what it is I'm saying and how it works mechanically, you'd realize all of that stuff is just gimmicks. It's just stuff that people sell because they don't actually know anything about the lymph system. It's not that hard, guys. Taking care of your body should not be this hard, and it's not. If you actually hit the anatomy books and look at your biology and look at your anatomy and look at how things function, it's not that hard, and it shouldn't be. It's just that we don't have any guidance, and that's what I'm here to provide for you guys, is the guidance on this stuff. So today, how do we know what's fat and what's lymph fluid? Fat is normal tissue. It's soft, it's supple, it can be thick, but it should be, soft, normal, squishy, doughy kind of fat. If it's hard, if it's thick, if it's viscous, if it's your skin is stretched, if it's not soft and supple, if it's a lot and it's misshapen, if you can't see features of your body parts, it's most likely it's going to be lymph fluid. And I mean, it can be on your face. It can be, literally anywhere, shoulders, legs, arms. Usually where you'll notice it the most, and it's the most common, is around your hips, around your lower abdomen, around your ankles, and your face, because those are the smaller areas that are more subtle and more subjected to lymph fluid. Sometimes even your wrist. If you can't see the bones in your wrist and you have like fat, and you can pinch and you have fat, but if your wrist is like blown up and thick, you'll know that you're swollen. That's something totally different. But when you're living with it every day, you kind of just write it off as fat. But if you are working out 24/7 and you've had kids and you've had C-sections and you've had any kind of surgeries, any kind of like your appendix removed, anything like that, most likely you're going to have a swelling problem, or at least some retention around your abdomen from those traumas. If you've never directly dealt with those traumas and you've never directly addressed the actual swelling that happened during those procedures or during those things, yeah, it sticks around. It sticks around from anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Sometimes even more. It depends on everybody's body. Like I said, primary, secondary lymphedema. If you're born without lymph nodes, how do you know? Well, there is a very, very, very expensive test that no insurance covers, that they inject dye into you very, very slowly, and it takes a lot of time, and the dye kind of lights up your lymph system, and they see where you have vessels and where you don't. But there are other ways that we can deduce from talking to me directly, from doing the virtual sessions, what's going on in your body, and if you do have a lymph problem, if it is primary or secondary, if there really is something where it's not fat or lymph. And if you still can't tell and you still don't know, you can always set up a virtual with me and we'll figure it out. And if it does happen to be fat, we can set up a diet plan for you. We can set up a lifestyle plan for you. Sometimes you gain a lot of weight from medications. A lot of the side effects of medications are edema. Edema is swelling. Swelling is not fat. Very different. So if you know you've been on medications, if you're on something regularly, if you know that you have like a weight problem and you can't seem to lose it by changing your diet or no matter what you do, you might want to start looking at other areas of your life that are causing this swelling. Because when you put on weight super, super fast, where it's not like, 5 pounds in a month, where it's 30 pounds in a month, 20 pounds in a month, 15 pounds in a month, that's a lot. And that's probably swelling. And it takes just as much time to get it off as it does to get it on, which is a very good thing because it doesn't last very long once we are getting it off of you and get you back on track. So that is what I have to say for today. This will go up on Friday on our IGTV. This is, again, something that nobody really knows unless you are looking for it, but a lot of you guys do look for it. So I hope this was helpful. I hope to see you guys soon. I hope to continue talking to you guys. And if you have any questions, please feel free to call our office, call the girls, set up a virtual with me, and that is all. So have a good rest of your day, guys. Bye.